running workbook. And you have here an icon, of course, for sharing, and then you decide whether you want to share it with all the students or send it to the students' email, and that's it. Okay? Can you see the last icon here? This is what's so interesting for me, because this icon shares the IP address. You know, every machine, every device that connects to the internet should have an IP address. So it allows your students to connect to your file, and at the same time you can share it here. Let me show you this one. If you have a smartphone, iPad, or laptop, can you please log in to the Wi-Fi that we have here and open your browser and then type this IP address? Please. iPad, iPhone, iPad or iPad, Samsung is fine. Any smartphone.
Where can I write this?
In your browser. So type this IP address. If you haven't logged into our Wi-Fi network, please use this password and username. Not available.
Please. I can try.
Oh. Wi-Fi Send Server is the app. It's the last app that I'm going to introduce today that allows allows you to remotely control your PC. So it means if you have a Word file, okay, and you have lots of things written and you want to give your feedback, okay, and this is a lot. So all what you have to do is to, where is the review thing here? I'm not familiar with this one. Do you know the idea of inserting a comment? Yes? Review and then review. We have here review. When you click review, there is a yellow box that says insert comments, right? So you can insert a comment, just highlight, okay, the word that you want to insert the comments, or the sentence, and then start typing here. So this allows lots of feedback, and at the same time, you don't have to stick to your table and just keep typing. You can go, move around, and even give the student the iPad to start typing their feedback freely without the limitation of AirSketch and the sorry for the amount of it.
What is the name of this application?
The first.
The last one.
So I have, yeah, Wi-Fi send server. I have the sorry, AirSketch, Wi-Fi send server, and as you see, can you see this? This shows how you can actually, this is a mouse. So anything, when you move here, as if you are moving your mouse for the unfortunately, I wanted this converter didn't work. I wanted it to be like hands-on one, but it didn't work. Anyway, I'll type my email, and if you want like the steps of how to create this, just send me an email, and I'll send to you the instructions of how to follow this. Thank you very much.
Suzanne Rizzo, and I'm a senior instructor here at AUC, and I will be moderating our panel discussion today about what makes a highly qualified teacher. I'll go over the overview for you so you know the process and to help our panelists also with the process. So first I will introduce the topic for a little bit, and then the panelists themselves will introduce themselves. And then for the first, they'll be answering 6 questions in total that we thought I had time to think about and prepare for regarding the topic. And then we hope to leave about 10 minutes for your questions. So as you're listening to the panelists, jot down any questions you have for the question and answer period. So from the crowd today, this is a highly popular and topic that everyone is interested in. It's a globally discussed, how do we hire but also retain highly qualified teachers, and what does that really mean? Because research is showing that the quality of the teacher has a direct effect on the students being able to achieve. So from the research, 5 general categories have come up that influence teacher quality. That is teachers' experience, preparation programs and degrees earned, the type of certification they have, coursework taken in preparation for the profession, and the teacher's own test scores. But it's not only that. Research has also shown that there are certain characteristics of effective teachers, and which I'll go over a little bit later, but these characteristics affect teachers' level of effectiveness. But what's really interesting in this piece of research is that teachers both with and without different qualifications showed no difference. So we're going to look at more, what does it really mean to be highly qualified, and perhaps we need to expand the definition of what that means. So if you could please silence your mobile phones, we would be greatly appreciated. So now we'll have our panelists introduce themselves, beginning with Elena.
Good afternoon. I'm Elena Siemens from Amadis, and I come into this topic primarily as a teacher at heart, but right now I'm regional director for Amadis, so I work with teachers and educators across 12 countries in terms of the hiring, the orientation, the training, the development, and so forth, and it's a very diverse pool.
Hi, my name is Nick Baguli, and I'm head of teacher training at the British Council in Egypt. I've been involved in EFL for the last 23 years, and I can honestly say I've never been more scared in my life looking at all these people, all these smiley faces. I've worked as a teacher trainer, academic manager, a recruitment consultant, and I've worked in 5 continents.
Hello everybody, I'm Hanan Faris, Associate Professor of Practice, Director of the Career Development Department, School of Continuing Education, American University in Cairo. By virtue of my position, I'm responsible of teacher training, recruiting teachers for different career-centered certificates, including teacher training certificates, handling about 15 programs, and almost 3,000 students with their complaints, problems, and everything.
My name is Alex Luco. I am an instructor at the Department of English Language Instruction at AUC here, and as Study Skills Coordinator, I have the privilege to work with teaching fellows in our program.
My name is Heba Fathalbeb. I've been teaching English for over 15 years now here in Egypt and in Canada. I was the head of the English department at CIC, and I'm currently the director of assessment here at AUC, and I'm the chair of the conference this year. Co-chair.
So welcome, panelists. The first question that's going to be posed has 2 parts, and the panelists have 2 minutes to answer each. Betsy will be helping you with time, so raise your hand, Betsy. She'll be giving you some signals so we can stay on track. So the first question is, what kind of teaching or teaching-related responsibilities do you generally screen applicants for? And part 2, what do you ideally see in a successful applicant's CV? So we'll begin with Annie.
Thank you. My role falls primarily in 3 areas, and that is to help establish standards and guidelines for hiring teachers for our English language programs across 12 countries, but also in the hiring and selection of teachers for very special programs. Like now we're doing English language for employability in ESP and so forth. So as we get more specialized, I also work in that area in establishing what is required of teachers for special programs like that. And I also work on teacher training initiatives. So trying to link all of those parts of teacher development and hiring and so forth. In terms of what we look for, I can say first the more obvious. If a teacher does not have a master's, we do want a recognized certificate. By recognized and a valid certificate, we're looking at one that is at least 100 hours, that has teaching practice, that is from a recognized institution and so forth. So, and also experience in preferable, not always. Of course, knowledge of the English language and skills, which we, when possible, we have teachers do a demonstration, okay? And language, advanced proficiency. Not native speaker, non-native speaker, but advanced proficiency and knowledge about language. But I want to add very importantly, I'm speaking very fast, but more and more we're looking at the need to go beyond this, to look at experience where possible in a variety of areas, in assessment, in curriculum development, in ESP. And there's many ways to get this experience and knowledge. And that is often the edge. Working with different age groups and so forth. That definitely helps in, especially with more specialized programs. Thank you.
That's good, yeah. The British Council has a regional HR department based in Dubai, and we also have an HR department here in Cairo. I'm involved primarily in looking at CVs and also doing interviews of teachers. The first thing to say is that to work at the British Council in Egypt, you must have either a British passport, UK passport, or an Egyptian passport. So unfortunately, we can't employ anyone here who doesn't have either of those passports due to the memorandum of understanding that we have with the Egyptian ministry. The other thing to say is that teachers should have a university degree, and they also need to have either the Cambridge English CELTA or the Trinity TESOL. So those are the two basic qualifications, teaching qualifications, that we look for in all applicants. And if applicants don't have either of those two qualifications, then sadly we can't consider them for a post at the British Council. In order to be accepted onto one of those courses, you need to have a good C1 level of English. Normally, we employ teachers who have at least 2 years post-CELTA or Trinity TESOL experience. And the kind of things that we're looking for, I guess, are an experience in terms of levels, experience in terms of possible teaching with different nationalities, different course types, that kind of thing. Other things that can be useful, an awareness of another language, an ability to speak another language other than your own English. Even something like a first aid certificate can be useful, because if you're teaching young learners and one of the children has a nosebleed, you're not going to freak out. So those kind of things can be useful as well. And if you've got any kind of drama, art, musical background, any experience dealing with people, even training opportunities, these are all good skills to have. I should just add that we do employ people who have less than 2 years experience in the British Council in Egypt, and they join something called the Teacher Support Programme, which I'll be talking a little bit about later on.
Well, to add to what my colleagues have just mentioned, as you can see, certified teaching experience is something that we all look for. And because at the Career Development Department, even from the name, we look for people who are practitioners rather than just holding certificates. So for us, definitely a BA is an essential thing, an MA is an asset. However, the certified teaching experience or the certified teaching diploma or certificate or whatever, for us is a crucial thing. Those who don't have it, they can still join, take first a certificate in teaching English as a second language or as a foreign language, and then start practicing as a peer teacher and then as a teacher. Because mainly we are handling adults, or the department handles adults, and the School of Continuing Education to a great extent handles adults. So we look for people with adult experience. As you all know, teaching adults is a bit different than teaching school kids. So experience with teaching adults, diversity of subjects, knowledge is another asset that we look for. Over and above, this is when we screen CVs definitely before an interview, because we have a demo as well to do. We look for people with technology, people who can utilize online resources, not necessarily that the classroom would have online resources wherever they do teach. However, online resources now became part of the game, as they mentioned. So we would like to see in a CV people who do know how to use technology, how to access technology and use it properly in a classroom setting. During a demo, we look for people who have passion for teaching, who are patient, who can deal with students and be able to communicate communicate the language and the culture as well. People who come and study at SCE are here for the language and the culture as well. So being motivated, enthusiastic about whatever they are presenting is something that we really look for.
So I work with a committee to screen and hire teaching fellows for our program. So these are teaching fellows who are teaching but also doing their master's degree in TESOL at AUC at the same time. So we realize that the applicants we get are still in a formative period in their teaching experience. However, we do need people who can go into the classroom on day one and be independent teachers. So there isn't like a golden checklist of things that means you are admitted, but there are things that we look at from the whole application to see where the applicant will get an interview or not. The first thing is the bachelor's degree. Of course, anybody applying to us will have a bachelor's degree, but generally our applicants are going to have an applied linguistics bachelor's degree or English literature, something around those areas. The next thing would be certifications. Certifications show some practical teaching experience, but also this professional development that we want to see. And so that could be something like a CELTA, it could be a PCELT, it could be even the TKT, those kinds of certifications. Finally, we are looking for that practical teaching experience in a classroom. It could be in a below university or at university level. We, for instance, get Al-Azhar, people who have taught at Al-Azhar to apply to us. Some other things are, one other thing that we mentioned to applicants who might not have a lot of experience but want to have a fellowship is, if you don't have much experience, if you don't really have the educational background, at the very least try to get some experience with older students, with college students, and then come back to us and we can talk. Not so much kindergarten because it's too young, and not too much, and not really tutoring because that's not a classroom environment. So those are the things that we're looking at in the application.
I would like to add to what everyone else said. Again, like we said, the basics are some sort of certification, whether it be CELTA or any kind of English certification. Of course, MA is a preferred type of degree, but not all our applicants do have them. We sometimes try to maybe make up for that by doing some sort of training or having them take some sort of training course. I would like to agree with what Hanan said about the technology. The technology part is very important, and that is one of the main questions that we ask during the interview is how comfortable are you using technology? How have you used it in your classes? How do you incorporate it into your lessons? All of that is an essential part now. It is not something, it's not a plus anymore. Something that is not maybe on paper and I think is really important is the demo or the demonstration, because that shows me what kind of teacher this applicant is. You might not have that much experience teaching, but when you give a demonstration, you can see that the teacher knows what they're doing. Is their class teacher-centered or student-centered? Is it organized well? What kind of activities would they be using? So we actually try to have the demo. It's about 15 to 20 minutes, but we tell them that this is like a mini lesson. We want you to give us some sort of idea of what or who you are in your class. And I think that is the most important part. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to question number 2, which Elena is going to be focusing on. Each panelist has 3 minutes to answer, and if any of the other panelists have something quickly to add, we welcome that as well. So question 2, when it comes down between 2 candidates that seem equally qualified, what then becomes the deciding factor in making the final decision?
This is a tough one because we get a lot of excellent candidates. And so beyond what's already been mentioned in terms of the knowledge, the skills, the experience in diverse areas, and so forth, then we get into areas that are harder to define, harder to grasp. And for me, this fall into attitudes, awareness, and a teacher instinct. And again, we may have a teacher candidate who has a lot of experience, but you may also have a young, less experienced teacher who shows some of these qualities. And I've divided it up into 5 areas, 5 C's, for you to think about this in different ways, because I think you can work on this, you can develop it in many different ways. Individually, certainly, if you find a program that really focuses on this, even better, a certificate program or professional development program. But I think it's 5 C's that I think are more and more important for our students. One is context. Context, so that the teacher shows a real knowledge of the needs of students. Maybe the teacher hasn't worked in a lot of different contexts, but understands that the needs of students are different. This might come out in the interview, it might come out in the demonstration, it might come out in a number of ways. So knowledge of the needs of students in different ways, and that they're not all the same. Culture, the role of culture in language. Again, because that is such a critical part of language.